T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff. Liftoff. 30 minutes after the hour.
Hello. This is Jonathan Calmus, your host of Low Gravity, a podcast brought to you by Cosmic. We're sitting here in the Picap offices in Bogota. It's a little noisy, which is a really good sign. It means that there's something happening here. And I'm sitting here with the CEO and co-founder, Daniel Rodriguez Mendez. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. In our typical fashion, I kind of forced you into this. I'll admit it.
Yeah, it's a surprise, but I'm glad.
Okay, good.
You did it.
I'm happy to. I wanted to have you on our podcast. We typically talk about, as I said, mobility, tech, the startup hustle. For me, Picap is one of the most interesting mobility companies out there right now. I like the approach you guys took. I like that you took kind of a growth hacking approach to an incredibly crowded space and a very difficult space on a global level. What inspired you to actually go into this? And just for some context, Picap originally started as moto taxis, right?
Yeah. I started with moto taxis, but maybe would be better if we go a little more back.
Tell me.
On time.
Let's do it.
Before Picap, I built a company called Smart Taxi, which was a ride-hailing app but using taxis. Mm-hmm. And we launched that company after a year that the other players did. So the massive market was already crowded. So we decided to focus on the corporate segment, and we did it well on that segment. That the company started to transfer employees for companies like Coca-Cola and the biggest companies in our country. But after a couple of years working on the company, the market started to change because other companies arrived to Colombia,
yeah.
Exactly, and they were not doing taxis but with normal cars. And at the beginning, I was thinking that maybe something was going to happen because we have seen in the past that the taxi drivers and the taxi owners, they have the power to make the government to do something about it. But at this time, I saw that nothing was going to happen. So I started to ask to myself, hey, we have to look to the future and try something else. So that's how Picap started. We decided to build a product to transport people, but using motorbikes,
which I love. As an American, it's such a foreign idea to me. I know it's in other parts of the world. Asia is very big, and India uses, which is also part of Asia, but it's kind of its own market. India and most of Asia uses it, but seeing Picap in its manifestation of taking such an old idea. The coast cities, from what I understand in Colombia, have been using moto taxis forever, like Barranquilla and places like that, right?
Yeah, the moto taxi is something really old. What we started to do was to formalize the business and to bring it to the main cities.
It's great. I think it's really cool. What do you think led to that inspiration? Why take such a big jump from taxis to moto taxis and now?
Yeah, actually at the Smart Taxi, me and my partner, I met him at Smart Taxi. We used to ask the delivery guy of the company to pick us up to do something when we were running out of time, and we saw that worked. So we decided to build the product to everyone. We created the first MVP that was in 2017.
Okay.
And at the beginning of 2018, we had a lot of drivers and passengers. And at the beginning, we were a little scared of the government because we have seen that the government has put tickets to all the ride-sharing companies, and so we were a little scared because me and my partner, we didn't have the money to pay a ticket.
To pay a fine.
But the business started to grow. And after a couple of months of launching, we met our first angel investor. He is someone who has done a similar business in Bangladesh, actually. And he was our advisor. He said, like, hey, don't be afraid, let's build a business, just focus on growing, and in the future you will find what you have to do. And that's what we did.
Has regulation been a big issue for you guys? I mean, this is always a question that we're asked as well at Cosmic.
Yes, it is. But it is actually one of the things that that we like it the most. Because when we launched Picap, there were big players here doing ride sharing. And we know that we could build something that could seems like something like kind of illegal, but it is not. It is gray. So we knew that we were going to have all the attention of the newspapers, radio, television news, and that's what we did. So it is. We did it that on purpose because we didn't have the money that the big players had, so this is something, a little window that we found.
Exploited, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the startup way. Were there ever times that you were questioning if you were taking the right approach? Did you ever have any doubts?
Of course. Of course.
I baited you. I knew that was the answer, but I had to ask the question anyway.
Yeah, I think this is something that that we as entrepreneurs, we are asking the whole time. Since the first time that I quit to my first formal job up to here with everything that I'm doing, we are all the times asking us that question.
Are you familiar with a term called imposter syndrome? You know what that is?
No.
Imposter syndrome is when you feel like you're an imposter in the room, kind of, and there's a lot of cases. Oprah Winfrey had talked about this, Steve Jobs have talked about this, that kind of no matter how big or how many talents and skills you have, or even how good you are at execution, in the back of our heads we always kind of feel like, am I doing the right thing? Am I the right person? Will they find out I'm not the right person? And all those types of thoughts. Does that resonate with you a little bit? Do you ever have those types of?
Yeah, it happens all the time. But what I know is that the best thing that I can do is to take any risk.
To just keep doing it.
Yeah, exactly. I have a metaphor that I like to tell, and it is that you cannot wait inside your house waiting for all the semaphores to be in green to get out.
All of the lights to turn green.
Exactly. All the lights to be in green, but the best way is just go out and you will find the best way to go to your place.
I'm sure you know they say that most of success is simply showing up. I think they say 80% of success is just showing up, just be there.
Exactly.
Be out of the environment. Many times I think all of us, myself included, we're looking for that perfect opportunity, and perfect opportunities are created. It's by seeing the trends and the patterns and being exposed to it all, so that when the time comes for the perfect opportunity, you actually know what it is and you can kind of sense the market before there is a market. And I think that's kind of what you're saying, is just go and do it, get out. And
exactly. Just do something and something will happen. No more wait.
What's your favorite project that's not business related? What's something that you worked on maybe in university or maybe with a family member? It doesn't necessarily have to be for the purpose of gaining money, just something you really remember enjoying doing.
What I am enjoying doing the most right now, it is spending time with my little daughter.
You have a daughter?
Yeah, nice. She's 1 year old, and I like it a lot because everything that I try to teach her, he learns so fast. So I'm impressive.
It's crazy. I always think back on my previous self, and I'm almost jealous of how fast I was able to learn as a child. For a reason, I think part of it is it's the formative years, so everything is processing really fast. But I think also we're less risk adverse when we're younger. I'll give you a nice story. We went skiing with my father. He would take us once a year to a place in California called Big Bear, myself and my sister. And one year I was the hero. Every mountain that there was to ski, I said, yeah, I'll do it. And my sister, who's a few years older than me, she was like, no, that's not for me. I'm not getting on that guy. And literally 1 year later, after whatever happened in my life, I was scared. I didn't want to do it anymore. And a big portion of, as you said, running a startup, hopefully getting to the point of success, is just taking the risk, is just putting yourself in a position that says, no matter what happens, it's all going to be the same. And at least I tried. At least I left the house and I didn't wait for all of the lights to turn green, the semáforos. That's really nice. What's some advice you would tell a new entrepreneur? How does someone actually take the type of risk that you're taking?
An advice? I will go again on what we were talking before, and it is to start something. It is not just about being smart. It is not about building a business plan. It is not about making connections, because actually, going back to a smart taxi, we were transporting employees for the biggest companies, and I didn't know no one there, and I realized that, hey, how we did that. And we did it just working and build and test, and doing that cycle as fast as possible.
Where did you learn that? That's in Silicon Valley and startup land, we call that the build, measure, learn feedback loop. Where did you pick that up? Because the culture is very different here. So did you have external mentors? Who taught you that form of thinking?
No, I wish I had a mentor, but I haven't found it, at least here. But it was just trying to build something. When you build the first thing, it is going to fail
miserably.
But and it happened to me.
Yeah.
I built like 3 or 4 or 5 businesses that are not working today, but with each of them, I learned a lot. And there is no better school, no better mentor to learn the things by yourself, like you being on the field fighting this thing. But yeah, and so yeah, I really learned being on the field, trying to build companies, build businesses.
So anyone who's listening should try to be create the feedback loop, which is build, measure, learn, in other words than what you said. But the real trick, the real magic, and I've been learning this for myself recently and observing other people that I admire, like Elon Musk talks about this a lot. The power is in shortening the learning time. If you can reduce the amount of time it takes you to learn the lesson and then apply the changes, that's where you start getting exponential growth. And that's really...
Yeah, and I have learned that also from reading and listening things. And that's one of the things that I try to tell our team today. My conclusion today is that an entrepreneur is someone who can build a business using an Excel sheet and a WhatsApp account, and just that. And when you prove the business with that, you can tell an engineer team to build.
Here's the process that needs to be turned into tech. Yeah, that's a really, really good point. What's like a window into your daily life? How do you start your day? How do you end your day? Typical day in your life.
When I was younger, I used to work a lot. And then after a couple of years just working, I realized that was not
Not the
something
approach.
that I wanted to do my whole life.
Yeah.
I got really fat. And someday I looked at me in the mirror and I was like, oh, I don't want to be like that anymore. So I realized that I wanted to balance my life between everything. So going to your question, the first thing that I want to do in the morning is just to go and do some exercise. It is most of the time at the gym, and after that I go back to my home and get ready to come to work. And most of the time working here, I spend my time with the team. I ask to myself who I should speak with today, because one of the things that I have clear in my mind today is that what we have to do as leaders, it is to look for new leaders or to help others to become new leaders.
I love that you're saying
because today we are working in almost 10 markets, and we are running more than one product, and we cannot have everything in my head, all the strategy and everything. But what I can do is to find the right leaders in each place to build a company. So I usually I'm in meetings the whole day, and I finish my day at like around 5, like a normal day, and I go back to play with my daughter.
Nice.
Or with my wife.
Do you return to work after your daughter goes to sleep? I know some people do that.
If it is something really urgent, I do. If not, I don't.
That's where the day stops.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I think that a lot of people, and until very, very recently, myself included, believe that hours equals value, and it just doesn't. The more you work, usually without the right type of focus, the less you get done in the long term.
Yeah, and also when you focus only on working, you start to lose the vision of everything. So it is really important for us as leaders to be quiet, to be balanced, so we can have a better vision of the future of what we are building. So it is better not to be working the whole time. So it is better to be in a balance.
It's still working. This is what I think is interesting. The perception of work is like someone doing something, right? Labor. Whether it's typing on a keyboard or if it's physically building a building or whatever you're doing. But the worldwide perspective and perception on work is labor in some capacity. But when you're at home, when you're taking your shower and you're thinking of new ideas and you're that's work.
And that's where the best
and that's where the best stuff comes from, totally, because you're in a more relaxed state. I read recently that the reason why the best ideas come from the shower is because it feels great. There's no other distractions. There's no cell phones. There's no stimulus. There's nothing like that. It's just you and your thoughts in a moment that you feel very comfortable. Hopefully. I actually love taking showers, and I think a lot of people do too. It's one of the more relaxing phases. What time do you normally wake up? This is another...
6 a.m.?
Okay. That's normal. I wake up around 6 a.m. too. These have been my days. The last few days I've been waking up a little later, but it's because I've been ending my days a little later. Do you think that people need to be rigid with themselves? Do you think that they need to say, if I'm not up by 5 and if I'm not finishing work at 12 at night, I'm doing something wrong? Do you think that's the right type of thinking?
I mean, I will say again that it is about find the right balance. I mean, the first thing that I have clear it is that the most important thing it is myself. So I have to sleep well, eat well.
When did you learn that? It's literally taken me my entire career to learn this, and I know it intellectually, but I don't always apply it.
Yeah, when I was working the whole time, also weekends, and I got fat, and I realized that I needed to change my life. I took decisions like stop working the weekends, sleep 7 hours, eat 4 or 5 times a day. It was that day.
That's really, really important. My dad has a nice metaphor. I might have even said it on a previous podcast.
If that's like the I mean, how do you say, like the base of the building?
The foundation.
The foundation of the building. If you have that good foundation,
the rest is easy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's very true. The metaphor my dad uses is when you go on the plane, they say before you give the oxygen to the child, make sure you put the mask on yourself. It took me so many years to learn why that's important, because it almost feels selfish sometimes. Part of I think a lot of the types of startup CEOs and leaders that I've met in my life in general, it feels like we're very generous people. And I don't want to just say that to, increase our egos, but really we're starting something because we have a vision of other things happening outside of ourselves. And so taking care of yourself, at least the way I interpreted taking care of myself, almost feels selfish sometimes, because it feels like I'm not giving enough to other people, but it's not. It's the reverse.
Exactly.
If you're not taking care of yourself, there's no way you're taking care of other people, and no way helping them take care of themselves as well. It takes a lot of work and I think understanding to really grow into that type of person. But that's beautiful. Let's talk a little bit about your life growing up. You're from Bogota. You were born and raised here.
Yes, I'm from Bogota. I've lived my whole life here. I graduated from college. I have a college degree in electrical engineer and also in computer science. When I was going to graduate, I was like, hey, what I'm going to do with these 2 degrees. So I decided to work in a telecommunication company.
Nice.
And I did. It was like 2 years. And after that, I decided that I wanted to do something really different. So I quit. And I started to try the businesses that are not working today that we were talking before.
What were those failed businesses? What are the businesses that are not working?
I was doing things for marketing, doing cameras, using the Xbox Kinect at that time.
Wow, awesome.
Then I started to build software for other companies. I built an agency to manage the social media of other companies. I also tried to build a speed dating company, but I realized that it was not going to scale as I wanted to scale. And then I started Smart Taxi.
I've been seeing a pattern between all of us startup guys. My background is really similar to yours. I was doing digital agencies and consulting and, programming for hire. Recently, I met the CEO of Agenda. Mm-hmm. The exact same story. The CEO of Rappi and the co-founders from Rappi had a digital agency too. It's almost like the learning how, learning with other people how to do it for yourself to a certain degree. The biggest struggle that I think a lot of early entrepreneurs deal with is the difference between the prototype and the production. And there's such a big divide between a concept being turned into something one single person can use in the quote-unquote laboratory versus how are we getting this in the hands of 10,000 people, 100,000 people, million plus. Do you have any feedback or any stories that you could say about the early days of your product before it was more mature and more stable? Yeah,
of course. I mean, this is not something new. I have listened to this a couple of times, and it is we have to be as lean as possible. And I can tell you a funny story about us at the beginning, and it was that at the beginning we didn't have a designer. The engineer team was only two-person team. Which was my brother and I.
Those are the best, though. Those are the best teams.
Yeah, so what we did to be as lean as possible was to try to copy another app working in another country that no one knows here, so we don't have to deal with anything new on the road.
So
and it was funny because we copy Everything.
Complete.
Yeah, we did reverse engineer to the Android application to get all the assets, the images and icons. And after we test the market, we hired our first designer to build our own
make
design.
it look
Exactly.
unique to Picap. It's really funny you say that. Most people do not feel comfortable doing that. And almost every product, from the smallest company to the biggest company, has started in that way. When a new product is emerging out of Google, unless it's pure and starting from literally zero, most of the time that laboratory product is a reverse engineered product. It's something that they said, look, I'm going to take a logo from here, a color from there, or this from there, and make a button. And
yeah,
all of a
but
sudden
you are
something's
an
working.
entrepreneur and you don't have the money that the other players have. I mean, this is the best way to do something lean and to test the market and to grow.
Totally. My version of that is I used to love doing WordPress sites because WordPress is so capable. It can do so many things. It can't necessarily scale to, hundreds of millions of users, but that's not its intended purpose. It's to do something quickly, build an MVP, a prototype. And so we would do very, very similar. Even today, when we have ideas for new product lines, we start on WordPress before we go into code. It gets a little easier to kind of justify things in that capacity. Daniel, thank you so much. This has been awesome. It's been great meeting you. Today's actually the first day we're meeting each other. If you had to leave everyone with one thought, one idea, or even one book to read, something that's inspirational to you, what do you want people to take away from this?
Yeah, I think that one book that have helped me a lot. The name could sound like an engineer book, but it is not really. And it was the name. It is Scrum: The Art of Doing Twice in the Half of Time.
Yeah,
and that book gave me a lot of ideas of how to build the MVPs and how to give examples to the team of how to build MVPs.
Awesome, really nice. Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
To start riding with Picap or to become a driver in Peru, Colombia, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, Guatemala, or Chile, you can download their apps in the Google Play Store and Apple App Store, or go to picap.app. Again, that's picap.app. If you're interested in launching your own shared mobility fleet, go to www.cosmicgo.co.